How to ace technical tests in the UK. My name is Isaac, previous CTO of a funded startup, and I run the checkout team at Pretty Little Thing. There's generally two types of technical tests. There is an on-call coding exercise, which is normally about 45 minutes to an hour. This is normally a little bit more algorithmic because they want to get as much information as they can in the short time because they have to be with you. And then the second type is the take-home technical test, which can take as long as it takes. And that's the one I'm going to be discussing today. A recruiter asked me this question because he said a lot of candidates basically got messed around a little bit by various companies giving them either nonsense tests or them not really knowing how to go about handling it. So this video, I'm going to kind of discuss what it is that they're looking for and how you should approach it. In my experience, the take-home tests that I've had, this has been to do with like data structures, potentially styling, and also like how you go about building a project, the file structure. They kind of want to see a project as a whole. It's normally not a massive thing, but it is kind of, can you build a system which takes inputs and has reliable outputs? How much time should you dedicate to these technical tests? If I'm honest, it kind of depends on your options and how badly you want the particular role that you're going for. If you've applied to a lot of places and there is interest, of course, you need it less and therefore shouldn't spend as much time. I'd say 3 to 4 hours is a pretty sensible amount. They give you a couple of days to do it, but it shouldn't be like balls to the wall. It takes you 3 days to do. Just going back to the options thing, like if this is a dream company for you and something that would really look good on your CV, you do want it, put in the extra time, it will be worth it if you get it. So caveat. I've heard people raise concerns about our coding test ways of mining free labor. I don't really think they are generally because, well, in my experience, the tests that I've had, they're not specific enough to really have any benefit that their coders can do in an hour or so themselves, especially having more on-ground experience with the tools that they're using. I'd actually be impressed if they managed to use the code that I did into something functional, because it's hard to take something so abstract and actually make it of use, though possible. You need to use your own discretion on this. They'll obviously want to know if you can work in the field that they're in, so it should be geared towards the industry or whatever their company is. But if it seems too specific and it's a big task, do be a bit wary. If they're a company that's trying to get free labor from tech tests, you don't want to work with them. So that's kind of face value. I wanted to set some expectations based on my experience. After that, how do you actually do well on this test? What are they looking for? They are looking for all the things you would expect, such as good code, clean file structure, but most importantly, can you follow instructions? Can you read them right? Are you executing with good reason? If the instructions seem confusing, I promise you it's a test. There's 100 different ways they could have written it. They write it specifically in a confusing way. Or unless this is their first time doing the test or a very new company, they will have had feedback where people have done the wrong thing. So if they've not changed it, it means that they're actually looking for the candidates that don't do the wrong thing, whatever that is. The interesting thing about these tests as well is it normally goes through a recruiter, whether that's an in-house or an external recruiter. So you kind of don't have direct contact with them to clarify on issues. Maybe if they were a bit warmer with it, like, oh, if you have any questions, ask us. If it's like that, maybe just try and clarify with them. If it doesn't seem appropriate to ask them and probe them for answers, use code comments. You document your decisions, you document what you think something meant, and you document why you took the steps that you took. Now, they might not necessarily like the outcome, but it's the same thing if you have like the maths GCSE, we were always told show you're working out, because if your working out is correct, even if your answer is wrong, you get points. And this is similar. As long as you can justify why you reached the conclusion that you reached and the process you went about doing it, if the working out is good but the outcome's wrong, there will be more leniency. And maybe that's even what they're looking for. They kind of just give you ambiguous instructions to see how you problem solve. Like, I really don't know. That's the tricky thing. It's all a big mind game. Your job isn't to be perfect. Your job is to do the best with the information that you have. And doing code comments, showing how you're doing the working out, it adds points. Have a README at the beginning of the file, which explains the file structure. Again, the steps and processes of what you did, and just gives them an overview of how to run, gives them a more pleasant experience when checking out the code, because they'll probably ask you to send to GitHub, so have a README. If you're familiar with the technologies that they use, which you should be from the interview process, and you should have already had a conversation or two, try and use as many of the frameworks sensibly, don't overkill, but the frameworks that you used that they're looking for, try and use them in the code test. If you think they'd prefer seeing a different or abstract skill that you can bring to the table, do that. I've had interviewers after the code review tell me that, oh yeah, use CSS here, this is really good. Now, the annoying thing about this is there's no real reason that I actually use CSS, and I don't even think it was a more efficient choice in this situation. They said they were happy to see it, and they actually used the words, oh, you made the right decision, because I said, yeah, I wasn't sure what styling I should use, because they wanted to see that you could do that, but there's zero indication of that. It wasn't a smart choice in terms of the stack or what I was using. It wasn't more efficient. The reason I did it was because the project I'd done before was using CSS, so it was just warm to me, and I figured I want to do this code test quick. So a completely arbitrary decision, doesn't affect anything. There was no prior indication that that's what they were looking for, and they indicated to me that, oh, that was actually a positive thing. So, you know, like, how do you then plan for that in the future? You can't. You're not in control of the process, I'm sorry, but you just have to put as many odds in your favor as possible. Try and make the code as obvious as possible. Like the ideal clean code, especially for how small the project should be, like 3 or so hours, you want them to be able to skim read the code and be able to understand what does what and where. So a lot of that is to do with like using the correct naming conventions so things are easy to read, but then also naming things appropriately for what they do. Consistent file structure. If you're not sure how to go about doing this, maybe actually look up some like file structure methodologies. There are processes out there people use. Doesn't matter which one, as long as it's consistent and sensibly done. Clean code is also very important because you're giving them a very small snapshot of what it is you're capable of. The way I normally do this is I iterate. So the first version I will hack out. I'll try and get something working as quick as possible, even if it's not robust, it'll fail on other cases. Just get something functional, and then I'll probably take like a 10-minute break, come back and think, right, with a fresh head, can I trim the fat? Can I make it cleaner? Then you might think, right, I'm gonna make it robust. You might deliberately try and break the thing. So you might put unit tests on it that have the most obscure, abstract stuff. So you're trying to actually break what you just made. Try everything, be random. This is really good to show that you've thought about the usefulness of your code. Even if you write so many unit tests that are abstract that you never manage to get it working in the end, you can say in your code comments, oh, I got it working to this degree, however, didn't have time to finish the rest. That's fine, but it shows that you are aware of the possibilities of the code. Like, it adds points. Git comments. This one's really important and often overlooked, but it's super important. If you're sending them a GitHub repo for them to look at, they can see the order that you've done things and how you split the work. So if companies are saying, oh, we like TDD, test-driven development, and you write all your code and then do your tests at the end, they can see that in the GitHub. Or, if you do all your work at once and it's one commit, they can also see you're not using GitHub properly. So before you actually start, have a think, right, on this fresh repo, how do I want the work to come across? Start with your tests, commit, do a section, commit, do another section. Make sure you use conventional commits, which is a GitHub naming convention, and just make sure overall the project is clean. The GitHub history paints a very clear picture of what it is you want to show them and how you work. Beyond that, it's a little bit tricky to give more specific information because they're quite varied. So that's just the general overview of what I think people should know. If you've got more specific question, by all means, please add a comment and I will get back to you. I also want to preface this by saying, please do not beat yourself up if you do badly. Everyone does badly at first. Even now, when I go for interviews, sometimes it takes me a couple of interviews to warm up and get ready. In and of itself, the interviewing process and technical tests, they are a skill. They normally fall into trends, and the more that you do, you'll be able to pick up the trends and do them faster. So just get the volume, get as many interviews as you can, go through them all. The further they go on, the better you'll get. If you've got a big interview coming up, line up a couple of the interviews before so you can get a little bit of practice in so you're ready for the big one. Don't beat yourself up. This is just my experience, but I do hope it was useful for someone out there. If you know someone who's maybe going through this interview process or potentially running into these problems, please send them this video so they can make a more informed decision. Thanks, guys.